Subtracting integers. Subtracting means to find a difference or separate from a group. A subtraction sign looks like this. A negative sign looks like this. Both extremely similar. Both mean to find the difference or to separate. Subtracting a positive. I have a positive 5 and I'm subtracting 3, which is also positive. I'm going to start on my number line and graph the 5. And I'm going to move 3 in a negative direction because I'm taking 3 away. So left is less. 1, 2, 3. Let's stop at 2. So 5 minus 3 is 2. I also pulled out my integer chips here. I have 5 yellow integer chips and I have 3 red integer chips that are negative. Remember that these cancel each other out. Positive and negative charges cancel each other out. Positive and negative attitudes cancel each other out. A positive amount of money in your checking account, positive 1 and a negative 1, they're going to cancel each other out and make 0. I have 2 positives left, so I can model that with my integer chips also. Let's do 3 minus 5. I'm going to start at 3. I'm going to graph 3, and I'm going to move 5 in a negative direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I stop at negative 2. Again, with my integer chips, I have 3 positives and I have 5 negative integer chips. Let's look at those together and what happens when I put a positive and a negative together so they cancel out. I end up with 2 negatives. Adding a negative. 5 plus a negative 3. Please notice the similarity between this equation and this equation. 5 minus 3. 5 plus a negative 3. Let's start at 5. And let's add a negative. Well, when we add a negative, it's still a negative. It still means to separate or to take it away from or to find a difference in. So we are going to move in a negative direction. 1, 2, 3. And we end up with positive 2. Again, notice the similarity. Notice the similarity in the number lines. Let's go to the integer chips. I have 5 positives and 3 negative integer chips. What happens when we put those together? Those are going to cancel out and I have 2 positives left. Positive 2. Notice the similarity in these integer chips, please. Now right here we have 3 minus 5. Down here we have 3 plus a negative 5. 3, I'm going to start on my number line with a positive 3 and I'm going to add a negative 5. So I start with a positive amount and I move in a negative direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's like saying I have $3 and I owe $5. I can pay off $3 of my debt, but I still owe $2. Look at my integer chips. I have 3 positives and I have 5 negative integer chips here. Again, we're going to have the positives and the negatives cancel each other out and we're going to be left with 2 negative integer chips. Notice the similarities to the integer chips up here and in the number line and in the equation. Think about those similarities for a minute. We're going to make a conclusion here, and I want you to fill in these blanks. Subtracting a positive is the same as blank a blank. Pause the camera for just a second and fill in those two blanks. Okay. Conclusion. Subtracting a positive is the same as adding a negative. Adding a negative. Here are more examples. -3 minus 4. We're going to start at -3, and we're going to move in a negative direction 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We end at -7. I have 3 negative integer chips and 4 negative integer chips, and altogether there are 7 negative integer chips. -3 plus a -4. Again, start at -3. And move 1, 2, 3, 4 in a negative direction. We end at -7. I have -3 integer chips and -4 integer chips, which looks just like this up top, and altogether I have -7. 8 minus +6. I'm going to start at 8 on my number line, and I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In a negative direction because we're subtracting that 6. And we end up with a +2. I have 8 positive integer chips on the top row, and I have 6 negative integer chips. These are going to cancel out and leave me with 2 positive integer chips. 8 plus a -6. I'm going to begin with 8 on my number line, and I'm going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the negative direction, which leaves me with 2. Again, I'm looking at my integer chips. I have 8 positives and 6 negatives. These will cancel out and leave me with 2 positive integer chips. Subtracting a negative. 5 minus a -3. Let's start with +5. And graph that on my number line. When I subtract a negative, it's like saying I'm taking away a debt. I am subtracting something that's owed. I'm subtracting a loss. If I can subtract a loss of, say, 3 pencils that I dropped on my way to school, maybe the scenario is I go back and I find them. They're there. I just subtracted my loss. I no longer have lost 3 pencils. I have those 3 pencils. I get to keep them. They're mine. All right. So when we subtract a loss, I'm going to start at 5. Looking at this, it kind of makes me want to go to the left to start out with because it's minus, but then it's minus a negative. So these guys kind of cancel each other out here. 5 minus -3, and I end up going 1, 2, 3 in a positive direction. And I end up with 8. Because when you subtract a negative, all you have left is positive. If you take away the negativity, all that's left is positivity. All right, I'm going to look over here at my integer chips. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 positive integer chips. And I put out 3 negative integer chips because that is a -3. But I'm subtracting the -3. So I'm simply, if I were in class with the chips on my desk, I would just flip them over to the positive side. And I would take away the negativity from those chips. And I would make them positive. So altogether I would have 8 positives. -3 minus a -4. Again, I have a -3, so I'm going to start at -3 on my number line. And this is minus a negative, so I am actually going to add 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I get 1. Because remember, when you take away negativity, all that's left is positivity. I can, if you want to, if it's helpful to you, when you see two negatives together, you can just cross those out, put a plus sign there. I have -3 chips here, and I would probably have laid out 4 more negative chips and then take away the negativity from those chips to change them into a positive. So 1, 2, 3, 4 positive chips, and these are going to cancel out, and I'm left with +1. 8 minus -6 is next. We're going to start at a +8 on our number line. And again, we're going to take away the negativity of 6, which would make that, a +6. 8 plus 6, I'm going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in a positive direction, is 14. I have 8 positive integer chips there, and again I would take out my 6 negatives and I would take away the negativity from them by just flipping them over. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 positives, so that altogether I have 14. Okay, in conclusion, when we subtract a negative, the negatives cancel and there is only blank left. Pause for just a minute and fill in that blank. Okay, there's only positive left. When we subtract a negative, the negatives cancel and there's only positive left. Okay, at this point I would like for you to pause and try these out. A sub is 200 feet below sea level and a plane is 400 feet above. What is the difference between the two numbers? All right, I usually like to draw a picture of this. So I'll draw a plane. Okay, I'm not an artist, definitely. 400 feet above. So I'll write 400. And then it's above sea level. And there is a sub 200 feet below. So here's 200 feet down here. Let's say that this is 200 feet. And here's my sub. Okay? And say that this is water and this is 0. All right. And I'm looking for the difference between those two. It says, what is the difference between the two numbers? Well, another way I could write this, is 400 minus, and since this is below sea level, that's going to be a negative number. I'm looking for a difference, so I know I'm subtracting, because subtracting is finding a difference between numbers. So 400 minus a negative 200 is going to give me the difference between the airplane and the sub. Well, these are two negatives put together. So I can change those. We're subtracting a negative, and all that we have left is positivity. 4 plus 200 is 600 feet. Also, looking at it from this perspective, 0 to 200, I know the distance is 200. From the 0 to the 400, I know the distance is 400. Altogether, from here to there, the 400 and 200 is 600. 600 feet. 4 minus 2 is 2. Easy. You've been doing this for years and didn't even know you were adding and subtracting integers. 8 minus -7. We have two negatives. When we subtract a negative, all we have left is positive. So I'll just change those into positives. This is going to be 15. Negative 2 minus a negative 1. Again, those two negatives are going to cancel out, and I'm going to end up with a plus sign here. Negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1 for number 4. Number 5, negative 4 minus 3. Negative 4 minus 3 is going to give us a negative 7. And 1 minus 6 is going to give us a negative 5.